Hello, hello, and welcome to Citizen McCain. I am Miranda Wilkins, and joining me today are Nikki Schwab and Mo Kelly. You can find Mo. Is your social media back yet?
No,
Mo got like briefly or still locked out of his
it's still
socials.
it's still just direct into my Facebook for now because
What in the world?
some
Okay, so
nefarious actors, unfortunately.
and there are fake profiles because I tried to go look for you and they have your face and they have our show videos up and under like a Mr. Mo Kelly account. So
Well, there is
anybody,
one that is legitimate that I'm still working on, but nothing official at this point.
okay, so nobody go yet until we tell you to or you hear
Right.
from Mo himself. But go to Facebook and look up Mo Kelly and add him as a friend. And until then, anybody with a connection to Meta, please let us know because we need to help Mo get back into his accounts. And then you can find Nikki Schwab. She's the Daily Mail's chief political campaign correspondent, and you can find her at Nikki Schwab. That's NIKKISCHWAB. We have a lot to get into. Specifically, I really want to talk about the primary results from last night because they are wild and all over the place and really like a referendum on where the country is going to go towards the end of this year. And maybe some people that we don't love so much got their comeuppance. So we'll get into that. But first, I do want to talk to you guys about Iran and what's going on with the administration and why the messaging is so off and whether or not we think that they're doing the right thing here because so many people don't and so many people do. But it's very, very split. So over the night, the U.S. intensified the strikes, and I was listening to the radio when I was coming home from dropping my girls off, and they're like, the Navy's at the bottom of the sea, and um, all this like very hyperbolic language. And Pete Hegseth was talking about submarines and all this very intense stuff. And the same time, the administration is saying that Iranian negotiators admitted they control about 60% of enriched uranium. And when you hear this stuff, it all sounds like very familiar. It's like weapons of mass destruction talk. And it brings me back to the early 2000s. And, I'm in high school about to graduate and George W. Bush and all that stuff. And maybe that's just me being very simplistic about a situation, but it feels very familiar. And there's a CBS News poll that finds most Americans say that the administration still has not clearly defined what we're doing there and what our point is uh, and our goal is with this conflict. And Marco Rubio has made a couple of different points about what our why we even did a strike in the first place. Thank you, Ashley, for putting up the poll. So, the perception is shaping public opinion, and the longer people think this lasts, the more likely they are to oppose it. So, half of Americans, we can see this, believe that the conflict could drag on for months or even years. This has not been approved by Congress. So is this even legal? What's happening? And right now, Americans say that this military action could make the U.S. less safe rather than more safe. Can we play um, the Marco Rubio clip, please, where he's kind of backtracking on what he said on Monday? This is the one that he said yesterday, Tuesday.
Absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
So he made that statement clarifying whatever he said Monday about we were going to strike first. And um, this was after the president made a conflicting statement after him. So the messaging is very, very off and confusing. Mo, when you hear phrases like enough uranium for nuclear weapons, but not actual nuclear weapons, and arming Kurdish forces, this sounds like major escalation. Very quickly, do you think the administration has clearly explained any kind of endgame here, and what does this make you feel?
There are a lot of thoughts would come to mind. When I hear Marco Rubio, I hear the ghosts of Colin Powell making the case before the UN as far as why we should go into Iraq. There are a lot of parallels there, but we're a different country now in 2026 as opposed to post 9/11. And even on 9/11, you had then President George W. Bush go on camera and address the nation and explain what happened, what we're going to do, and why. And so it was a bottom up movement to go into Afghanistan and later into Iraq, where people at least understood, whether we agreed with it or not, what we were doing, why we were doing it, and the consequences if we did not. And there is a degree of, I don't want to say disbelief, but maybe cynicism as far as going back into Iran or more broadly, the Middle East. And part of the reason I believe that the administration has not been specific is they want to leave it open as far as their goals. Because if you declare a mission, the specificity of a mission right now, then the American public will hold you to it. And it's not about declaring mission accomplished like George W. Bush did back with regard to Iraq. It's about having some space to move where if the campaign moves left or right, not in a political sense, but in a military sense, that they will be able to say, yes, we meant to do that, or yes, our goals have changed. So yes, we are in the dark as Americans, to put a pin on this, but there is a reason for it. And I don't know how long Americans will go along with that reason.
Okay. And Nikki, do you like, if most Americans feel like the administration hasn't explained the objective, is this like Mo was saying, is this strategy? Is it messaging failure? Do you know anything about whether the idea itself is still evolving within the White House? Because you're pretty close to what's going on in there.
I mean, I think it's just Trump being Trump. And I think Mo is right that being able to not quite identify what a victory looks like means that later you can identify a victory and say, look, we won, and then get out of there. So I think that potentially could happen down the road. I think, I mean, the communication strategy has been, I would say, outright bizarre. If you really think about what, I mean, Trump is sort of known, and the White House touts this transparency, but every time he made an announcement about Iran over the weekend, he didn't do it in front of the press pool. And today will be the first time that Carolyn Levitt briefs, and it's already midweek since this conflict began. So, I mean, perhaps that sort of shows that they still have needed to get their ducks in a row, because the messaging has been kind of all over the place. And you see that with sort of even just sort of the differences in, how Pete Hegseth talks about it versus Marco Rubio versus JD Vance versus the president himself. And, I mean, it doesn't even seem like they can quite get the correct timeline of like, was it Israel's idea or the US's idea, and who had the intelligence when?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's important to know who had what info when and who was sharing it with who and how. There's been a lot of information out that TMZ reported on
That
the
was wild.
the reports before anything was made public, that there were pictures posted to social media that had strategy plans in the background, and that there were, once again, bets on Poly Market that where people made, nearly $500,000, hundreds of millions of dollars about when the bombs were going to go down, when the strikes were going to happen, and where. So again, insider trading, fraud, insiders making money off of war. That's, very personally disgusting to me, and should be investigated. This is a huge problem with leaks in this White House. Has there been any talk into figuring out why someone was so brazenly at lunch speaking so loudly about military strategy to the point where some guy, I can't remember who it was, but someone went running to Harvey Levin?
Yeah, I can't exactly remember
Who it was, but
gentleman's
he
name,
called
but
into TMZ and was like, "Yeah, you won't believe what I just heard at lunch in
and it's
DC."
Joe Stone Crab, which
Joe
is a
Stone Crab. Yeah.
massive restaurant. It's the one that Trump went to when he did his sort of walkabout in DC to show that DC is safe now. It's also where Marjorie Taylor Greene got engaged. So it's sort of like one of these places.
I've been to the one in Miami.
That's the
delicious.
OG.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the CNBC place. But I'm not sure if, I mean, again, this would be a question to ask at today's press briefing, which again, we have not had for days and days and days. So, I mean, hopefully someone will ask that question.
You
If there's
got a
going to be an
pretty big
investigation into
scoop
this.
of with President Trump over the weekend. Do you want to tell us about that before we jump into something else?
Yeah, so I called him
You
and
just ran. Okay, so you're at home.
I'm at
Set
home.
set set the scene.
I actually called him on Saturday as well, and he didn't pick up. But I called him on Sunday, and it was after I realized that he hadn't commented yet on the fact that 3 Americans had perished in
Oh
this
yeah, okay.
conflict. And this would mark a very sad first for him. Obviously, we didn't have casualties during the June operation in Iran, the bombing of the 3 nuclear sites. We did not have American casualties in January amid the capture of Nicolas Maduro. So this was the first time that the president would really have an opportunity to speak about the fact that we are losing American lives in a conflict that he ordered in his second term. And so he picked up and he chatted with me for 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
That's
But
pretty good.
the big news out of that is that he revealed that, it had always been, quote, a 4-week timeline that, this military operation was expected to go about 4 weeks. He later, doubled down on those comments, despite Pete Hegseth being kind of upset that he sort of put out this timeline whenever Pete Hegseth was asked about it by, I think it was an NBC reporter. But when Trump was talking about it in the East Room on Monday, he again said, 4 to 5 weeks, but hey, it could be shorter. But if it's longer, we'll have the supplies. So, but I think his people did not want there to be a timeline because, again, if you set goals and you don't meet goals, then you can't call it a win.
Yeah, to Mo's point. And that's great scoop, Nikki, by the way. That's
Thanks.
incredible. I was all over the place over the weekend. You know, when this is split so hard among party lines. I mean, like diehard MAGA is very angry about this because he ran on no new wars. And it's like so many things have happened just in his year tenure, year and change. Middle of the road conservatives are, I don't want to say that they're celebrating. I don't know, but they're like,
They're more pro.
yeah, because they're like, overturning the Ayatollah. I think a lot of people are pro dictator removal. But it's like the regime change thing. We've seen this story before. Uh, it's familiar, like I said earlier. And then there's hard left people who are kind of on the same side as the pro MAGA people. Are like, we said no wars. Why are we spending so much money on this? We need funding here at home. This is messy. This is not our place. Why are we there? So there's a very clear divide. Mo, when the public doesn't understand the goal of the military operation, and more broadly, when these foreign policy crises tend to break so clearly along policy lines, what can be done, especially when this was so clearly against everything that they ran on their platform?
If it's
We ha
unpopular now, the longer that it goes on, it's going to be increasingly unpopular. And that goes back to not laying out the case before, or at least in the early days of this military campaign. And I'm not so sure, since I said before that we're not the same country as we were pre 9/11, we're not going to respond well to more and more dignified transfers of the remains of service members as this conflict military operation should expand, if only because we weren't given all the information in advance. And I think that there are some things which transcend politics or above politics. And seeing service members come home in caskets is one of those things which kind of unfortunately unifies the country. If you want to use Vietnam as an example, what we did in Kuwait and even Iraq, it was a little bit different, and even Afghanistan, because we understood why we were there. It was not a war of our choosing in the sense of the timing. And we knew that basically you could make the argument that we didn't have any choice because we were knee deep in the war on terror. And you had the imagery of 9/11 to undergird that. We have none of that here. We don't have a national address. We don't have an explanation of what we're doing exactly and why. Yes, we're been told that we're trying to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. But here's the reality. That technology has existed since the 1940s. It is not difficult to create a dirty bomb. I think, and I'm not saying this because I have inside information, I'm just saying be realistic. I don't think it's possible to keep Iran, or any country for that matter, from having nuclear capability. Now, can we stop them from having a nuclear arsenal? Can we stop them from having ICBMs, ballistic missiles, which could reach us? Absolutely. But that technology is out there, and you have people who can create a bomb, quote unquote, in their garage. So I don't know if that reasoning for going into Iran is going to work long term.
Well, it doesn't help when we have the benefit of social media now, where we can see video of Netanyahu and other world leaders saying Iran is just weeks or days or months away from having a nuclear weapon. And these videos of them making these addresses go back decades. So it's like, you know, when we've been hearing these imminent threats of doom for 30 years, it's kind of like, well,
Chicken Little.
okay, who cares? You know, at some point, it hasn't happened. And, you know, is this even about stopping nuclear capability? Because at some point, you know, we've weakened the Iranian regime. I wouldn't say that the people are liberated because they're still going on in the streets and protesting and whatever. And there hasn't been a total regime change. There isn't anything in place. Um, I, they said that they were going to do the same thing in Venezuela, and we haven't. I mean, what's even going on in Venezuela? Does anybody know? So how long before people start asking whether this is another open-ended conflict in the region? I know it's only been a couple of days, and these are really big questions, but at what point is this a quagmire?
Do you want to hear our latest polling?
I
Because
would love to
it's
hear your latest
already
polling.
not super great for Trump. So the Daily Mail,
Yeah, when did you guys do this?
this dropped today,
Okay.
and I had conducted a poll on Friday. So there's already, you know, so those 2 pinpoints, he's already lost 4 points
Wow.
in popularity. He's down to 44%, which is our
This has to
lowest
be his lowest ever.
our lowest ever for the Daily Mail JL Partners poll. 40% who were polled said they have a more negative view of Trump as of this week, and 59% answered it was because of the war. And that
Wow.
is just, I mean, and usually, you know, I think that people want to give their commander in chief a little bit of breathing room. So
Especially
I don't
coming out
think
of a State of the Union.
yeah,
That's
and that was only what 1 week and
it
1 day
feels
ago.
like a year
It
ago.
feels like it was last year. And the State of the Union, I think that you could probably argue was a missed opportunity, because I thought that he had, you know, sort of a great performance, and, you know, really it was quite entertaining with the, you know, the hockey players and the medals of
Mhm.
honor.
A lot of
But
USA chanting,
yeah,
and
you know,
these guys are crazy, and
if you
there's a
like
lot of
Trump, you love that speech. You thought it was great, but that would have been a venue to make this argument. And because he didn't really make the argument on why, you know, putting American forces on Iran, I think that that has led to more confusion, to be honest.
yeah, there was nothing. And I understand that you need to go into this stuff with you know, secretively. You can't make a big
Yeah.
pronouncement. We're gonna bomb Iran, like, you know,
But
at
it
the
was
State
pretty
of the
obvious that
Union.
we were, you know,
Gearing up, sure. I mean, there's what for the last month or two, the Armada's been there, and
yeah,
the planes and everything's been gearing up in the
the
sea.
ships are pretty
So
big.
yeah, you can't miss them. And I mean, the news has been reporting on it ad nauseum. So, uh, I don't understand what I still, for the life of me, I don't understand what the point is other than just regime change. But again, like the guy that they put in charge, they got him in 10 minutes. So who's next? Who's going to volunteer for that job? And for Marco Rubio, this has elevated his position, whether you like it or not, his messaging. He is the face of this front and center. And you know, whether like with the messaging shifting and the messy explanations for whose idea was, like you said, Nikki, Israel or Trump or whatever. Is this elevating his profile in Washington? Are
I
you
mean,
hearing anything about
he
that?
already
Or
he has like 20 jobs already.
I
So
know I have
I
this
feel
great
like
picture of him as like totally memed out. He's the smoking Ben Affleck, exasperated in all of the costumes, not
I
the
mean, I
costumes, but
really
the
want to know
uniforms.
what he's doing with the National Archives, because he remains the chief archivist. So, I mean, I'm a little worried that they're not getting the attention that they deserve right now.
Yeah, and then what's going to happen with Cuba? Because that's apparently next up on the the watch list for this administration. But Mo, can I ask you about the media piece of this? Because, the framing of how the news covers all of this, and I'm not even talking about us, because, this kind of show podcast for all of our wonderful listeners who, if you want to talk to any of us, please raise your digital hand. I see all of your lovely faces. And anybody on the YouTube, if you want to jump on the Zoom, please register and join. Ashley will let you in, and you can talk to either Nikki, Mo, or me about this or anything else your heart desires. We would love to speak to you. But when the media, like the news, CNN, CBS, the TV news, when they're talking about this, the framing matters. And if people believe that this is about stopping a nuclear weapon, then the support tends to go up, like Nikki was saying, and you were saying, But when it starts to drift towards regime change or, some other open-ended weapons of mass destruction, Middle East conflict, struggle, whatever, and we believe that this is going to be a forever war, that changes quickly. How do you think the media is helping to clarify the stakes here, or is this just another opportunity for 24/7 wall-to-wall coverage of war porn and explosions and I hate to use that term war porn, but you know what I'm talking about, where it's just a lot of B-roll in the background of the whatever's happening at nighttime because that's when it's the most interesting to look at.
When
Uh,
there is a void provided by the administration, then media is going to pursue whatever narrative or lead that works for their audience. I believe that there was a political misstep going back to the State of the Union. You're riding high. There was a roundly praised speech as far as stagecraft, performance, pep rally for the USA. There was a missed opportunity to, as already been articulated, to lay out the case for Iran. But more importantly, there was a missed opportunity to use that as a lead-in to what was going to go on in Iran. And there are a number of things here. Marco Rubio, yes, that was his moment to distinguish himself in a political sense from J.D. Vance. And I do believe that he is running for president, and he will be known and defined, talking about media, by what happens in this war in the way that Colin Powell was defined by Iraq. Because if Iraq had gone differently, I believe Colin Powell would have run for president and become president. Marco Rubio, he's made it very clear he's run before. He wants to be president. J.D. Vance is missing in action right about now. He hasn't had a role thus far. And the media will follow whoever is willing to speak out on this. And so all this lands firmly in the lap of Marco Rubio as far as defining what the mission is, where we are in completion of the mission, and whether we are falling short. I'm not going to blame the media for talking about things, obviously, which are the biggest events in the world, but talking about them in a way which may be nonsensical and all over the place when the administration hasn't stepped in to define how it should be discussed.
I'm just double checking something. I apologize, guys, but I think Marco Rubio worked in the Bush administration. Did he not? I feel like I remember him.
He
He
was
was,
elected originally in 2010 as part of the
I
Tea
think.
Party movement. So I'm not sure about
I
that.
think he was um
And he was a
mentored by Bush. Maybe it was Jeb because of Florida.
oh yeah, because he was a Florida House member, and then I remember hearing about him sort of very early on in his political career because he was a big Tea Party guy. So that's
Yeah.
how he sort of came on the scene. And it's interesting because I think that people now have this more sort of moderate view of Rubio, especially in sort of, the lane he took when he ran in 2016. But he was part of the, sort of raucous Tea Party movement back in the day.
Yeah. Okay, so question for you guys with this. What does success look like here? And Mo, if you want to go first. What end game ideally for in your perfect world, what does success look like here? Because I want to hear if you had your advice, if they called you up and said, Mo, I need your help, you know everything. How should we end this? What does it look like?
I would have a clearly defined succession, line of succession, so people understand that one hardliner is not taken after following another hardliner, and then we're not coming back in 3 to 4 years dealing with the same issue. In the sense of like Venezuela, we didn't change the leadership this basically the same administration minus the president of Maduro. So we haven't changed anything. We need to do something opposite of Venezuela. Have a clearly defined line of succession where American people can be confident that we're not going to be back here in 5 to 10 years. That's number one. And then number two, get everyone home. I saw a message in the chat. There wasn't a plan to get Americans home. Get Americans home from around the world.
Oh yeah, that's my next
our
thing.
soldiers home.
Yeah, there's Americans stranded, and we can get into that. Washington is debating the strategy and the messaging of, what's going on, but there's a huge piece of the story that's really not getting a lot of coverage, and that is that, there's 14 countries across the Middle East, and there's that have Americans that the State Department is now urging these Americans come back from, and that's like Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And officials say that there's more than 1 million Americans that could be in these regions, and travelers are saying, the travelers are saying like that they're basically being told that they're on their own, like figure it out, which I would have no clue. I mean,
No.
one travel blogger who's stuck in Kuwait told CBS News she's trying to organize an exit herself because she can't get any help from the government. She's called everybody. She's gone to consulates. She can't get anyone on the phone. And so the administration is, focused on the military side of the conflict, but there's nothing happening to do any sort of like, everybody get to this safe zone and we will be flying you out, Thursday at midnight on a plane, and get there or don't. But if you get there, we'll take you home, kind of a thing. So, when the State Department tells Americans to depart, Nikki, but, use commercial transportation, but everything is grounded or there's like one flight out for the entire rest of the month. And is it going to take, TikTokers dancing in their hotel rooms to say, I'm stuck in Qatar, get me out of Kuwait? Like, how is that going to, is that what's going to take to get these people out? And I hate to, joke about a serious situation because it's so serious. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be petrified if I was there or my friend or relative were there. I don't know what I would do.
Did you see the story about, actually it's one of like Trump's sort of top I think he's Gen Z advisors, Alex, I can never pronounce his last name, Brasowitz, but he actually had to charter a private jet and he like grabbed a bunch of Americans that he was around to like
That's nice.
to flee Qatar on Monday. And I mean, he sort of pushed back because people sort of assumed that because he's like one of Trump's top political allies, that the president would have just like sent him a plane. But that's not true at all. He actually had to charter
Yeah.
his own jet, and he ended up in Greece because he has a close relationship with our
Could be worse.
ambassador
Yeah.
there, who
Oh,
is, as you
Kimberly.
know,
Yeah.
Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if this is what even Trump's inner circle is having to do, imagine if you don't have these kind of strong ties to Washington.
Yeah, there's someone that I know who was like, "Oh, my trip to a country in the Middle East, I'm not going to name it." She's like, "Oh, it's pushed off because she was supposed to go in a month or something," and she's complaining about it. I'm like, "Oh, there's bigger problems." But how
Just think about how many people also, if you think about it, I mean, if you're flying anywhere across the globe, you're often switching planes in like Doha.
Yeah,
Or
and
in,
forget it. I mean, it's completely just a no-fly zone, I think, in the entire region. And so, Mo, do you think that the public understands how complicated it is to evacuate civilians from this area that's suddenly on the brink of just a wider war?
Well,
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think collectively we're learning, and I appreciate Nikki reminding me and everyone else. Like a lot of these transit points and connection points sometimes are going through to the Middle East. I'm scheduled to go to Asia in June. I don't know if that trip is still going to happen because in situations like this, we don't know how the conflagration is going to spread. And here's something else: when we're talking about lack of strategy as far as what is being told to Americans, it invites criticism that the administration may not have foreseen, in the way that we rightfully criticize the Biden administration with the extraction and the leaving of Afghanistan. There's going to come a point in time where we're going to have that same conversation regarding Iran and whether it's going to be handled correctly, not only to protect American service members, but also Americans around the world. And so far, it doesn't seem like all these things were taken into account. Not that I've ever served in the military or a military strategist, but I do know this. When you start a fight, and clearly US and Israel have started this portion of the fight, you can't control the response. In other words, we can't control what Iran is going to do. We know that US embassy in Saudi Arabia and somewhere else has been attacked by drones. So in other words, we don't know, even if the US should pull out or scale back the military aggression, it doesn't mean that this is over in the eyes of Iranians, this particular regime, or any of its allies, be it Hezbollah or any other of those proxies. So these are the things that President Trump can be well-intentioned, he can't necessarily control.
And speaking of China, and this is, a bigger question for you, Mo. Do you think that there's a chance that China gets involved in this? Because Iran is incredibly important to China as far as oil production, the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, China has a lot invested in Iran. What is there any chance you think in that would in my psychic viewpoint, that would escalate this into the next World War, and including what Lindsey Graham had to say, I think it was yesterday, when he's like, we're going to unleash holy hell on them. And that was scary when I heard him say that. I was like, oh crap. So if China gets involved, is that game over for this being a kind of quick conflict?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why people have talked about it in the stark terms of a possibility of a third world war. And it's not hyperbolic because of these alliances. And remember, I was talking about going to Asia. North Korea is a variable in this equation as well. You talk about the alliances between Iran, China, and North Korea. If North Korea says, Kim Jong-un says, you know what, I'm feeling kind of neglected and I want to be seen.
Well, and then Russia jumps in too because of their drones.
And threatens South Korea or just shoots off some missiles. Then it becomes a situation which we can't necessarily control in the media or even militarily. It is then turned into something. Like I said, if you punch someone in the face, there's no guarantee that they won't come back and hit you with a chair. Or
bring their brother. Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't know.
Okay. Yikes. Okay. Before I get petrified, does anybody have anything else they want to add? Because I want to talk about Texas.
I think that comforting note is where we can leave it.
Don't worry. I have a really funny story for us to end the entire show with. Oh, Ashley, can we show the general that Megan sent us before? If we're going to do military stuff, we'll end on this nice military general who has this guy, Michael Langley. He's making history. He's the first Black four-star general in 246 years of the Marine Corps. And he looks kind of like he was made in a lab. He's like Megan's like, he's straight out of Central Casting, this guy, but also just congratulations to this man for making history as the first general of color in the Marine Corps. We salute you, sir, and your service, and please get us in and out of Iran quickly because we don't want to be there. Okay. Or I speak for myself. I don't speak for anybody else. So, okay. Let's talk about the primaries because there were some big signals coming out of Texas. And on the Republican side, our lovely friend Dan Crenshaw, I say that very sarcastically, lost his primary, which is pretty stunning and an upset for the four-term incumbent. Sorry, guys, my allergies are going insane. Mo, it's very windy here.
Yes.
It's horrible. So he's one of the most recognizable Republicans in Washington and kind of one of I don't know about lately, but one of the loudest anti-MAGA Republicans still. And, he's been kicked out. Another Texas Republican, Congressman Tony Gonzalez, who we told the story of this guy last week. For anybody who wasn't here and missed it, he's the one who sexually harassed, allegedly, maybe, is this alleged? I don't know if it is still, so I'm just going to use it because I don't want to get in trouble, but allegedly sexually harassed a staffer to the point where she um, killed herself via self-immolation, and he still won't resign. He won't step down. He still continued his race, and the voters of his county voted for him. It's a runoff. He didn't even lose. So I don't know what that's all about. The brutal primary, it's going to a runoff. And that was dominated by scandal allegations and attacks from inside his own party. Everybody's telling him to lay down and get out. So I'm mad about that. And then on the Democratic side, James Tallarico defeated Jasmine Crockett in a very closely watched matchup, and that turned into a proxy fight over the future of the Democratic Party. And all over the board, there's talks about election interference and voter problems with their new rules about the cutoff time and no late votes counted. And especially in Dallas County, there were, and Nikki, you can explain this further because you're much smarter than I am on this, but it's like they have some new rule and there was a lot of confusion at the polling places. And apparently, especially Jasmine Crockett, I believe, and I haven't seen her videos from this morning, but she was saying that this is cheating and she still has a fighting chance. So,
Well, that was at
um,
1 a.m. So she's since conceded.
oh, she has conceded. Okay,
Yes,
excuse me, and
yes.
thank you for correcting me because yeah, last night she left her party and was like every vote needs to be counted. This is, crap basically because they were kicking people out of line, which famously we know, at least in American history, everywhere else, if you are in line, you get to stay in line until your vote is cast and counted. So, but that's not the rule in Texas anymore. So please, Nikki, can you please explain that and then tell us, when you look at all these results together, Crenshaw losing outright, Gonzalez in the runoff, Tallarico emerging, what does this tell us about the political energy in Texas right now? Because to me, it looks frenetic.
Okay, so let me try to explain what
As best
happened
as you can. Yeah.
in in Dallas. And it's important that this happened in Dallas because that is where Jasmine Crockett is from, whereas James Tallarico is from Austin. So like she was planning to get the most votes, and also she was polling better among election day voters. So if things went awry in Dallas, I mean that could have, potentially really screwed her. The thing is that Tallarico won by such a big margin at this point that,
She had to concede.
yeah,
Yeah.
she had to concede. But my understanding is that because the Democrats and the Republicans were holding separate primaries, where the Democratic voters were voting was not necessarily their normal polling place.
Mhm.
And so you had a lot of confusion of like where to actually go during yesterday's election day. So a judge ordered that the polls in Dallas County could stay open for an additional 2 hours. But then the Texas State Supreme Court ordered that to be negated, and then told basically poll workers that they needed to sort of cut off votes after anyone who tried to vote after 7 p.m. So if it had been a razor thin race, it could have been sort of a huge legal mess. Now, the reason why it's not going to be a huge legal mess is because Tellerico, I think, is ahead by like 6 or 7 points at this point. So that made it a little easier for the AP called it close to 3 in the morning last night. CNN called the race a little bit before that. So it's sort of a done deal. Now, when it comes to what this actually means, I think that with both Cornyn getting more votes than Paxton on the Republican side of the Senate race, and Tellerico getting more votes than Crockett, I think that you're seeing that voters in both parties probably want to win because in both cases, Tellerico was the stronger Democrat against either Paxton or Cornyn, and Cornyn looked to be the stronger Republican against the Democratic candidates. So I think that that would be a main narrative. As far as the Crenshaw race, I think this is just MAGA, taking a hammer to, anyone who touches Donald Trump.
Okay, so Mo, when voters start knocking off incumbents and forcing others into runoffs like this, is this a sign of like ideological purity inside of parties or voters just venting their frustrations with the political class?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. I wouldn't put it in one bucket or the other. Let me explain it like this. Jasmine Crockett, she has a national profile. But if you
Yeah.
know anything about elections, a national profile doesn't necessarily transfer to a state election. And just because you're beloved in your state, it doesn't mean that you can run for national office. We look at Ron DeSantis, beloved in Florida, national candidate, fell apart. Jasmine Crockett, beloved in her district. But as far as a statewide race, and we're talking about a red state of Texas, I don't care if it's a Democratic primary, it's still a red state of Texas. The blue dog Democrats that she would need to vote for her in a statewide election are probably more comfortable with James Tallarico and how he speaks the language of Texans. He is a pastor. He leads with Bible verses. He is not as I'll say over the top, my phrasing, Jasmine Crockett. So it's an easier sell if you look at the specifics of that race. Now, if you're a Democrat, you should be overjoyed because the turnout and enthusiasm is indicative of a much more competitive senatorial race come November. So if you're a Democrat, you should be happy about that, whether you supported Jasmine Crockett or not. But yes, as far as the Republican side, Dan Crenshaw, I'm not surprised that he lost, if only because MAGA is a purity test. And although, the Democrats want to take down Trump, that specific race in Texas, the dynamics were such more related to Texas, that demography, as opposed to Dan Crenshaw, where it's like, it's not about being Texas. You're just not MAGA enough for us, Dan Crenshaw. You got to go.
Nikki, have you seen anything? Whitney in our chat just brought up something interesting. Have you seen anything about the demographics for the turnout? Has there been any polling about, more Democrats came out than Republicans or any post voting info?
I think that there had been chatter that more Democrats came out than Republicans, but I would want to look that up before I was quoted on it.
Sure. Okay.
Sorry.
Maybe it's just going to be a little bit longer before we get that analysis. But yeah, I mean, these were hotter elections. I think Tallarico and Crockett, that's a really big one. Uh, I, when you start to see results like this coming out of a big state like Texas, Nikki, do strategists in Washington see it more as like a national warning sign about where voters are heading, or is Texas kind of like its own, Wild West universe?
I mean, I think that, there are national lessons from Texas. I mean, it's still like a very red state.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I don't know if a Democrat could win there in the fall.
Right.
But I covered the Doug Jones Roy Moore race, which people said there was no way a Democrat was gonna, win a Senate seat in Alabama, and then Doug Jones did just that. But it was because Roy Moore was such a really creepy and flawed candidate. I mean, there were stories coming out about him trying to date like teenage girls, like, allegedly. Trying not to get sued. Make sure I'm remembering that story right.
We need to just do like a disclaimer at the beginning and end of this show that everything here is just a
Now,
legend. To us, we're poor.
Paxton would be obviously the guy that Democrats would want to run against, I think, because he has more troublesome baggage, but he also has with him sort of the MAGA clout. So then you've got Cornyn, who's just, you're sort of very standard Republican, still a very conservative. Like you would think that maybe he would be the harder guy to run against, but then does he lose Trump's MAGA base because he took out Paxton? So that'll be sort of interesting to watch those dynamics.
Yeah. Mo, when voters start punishing these incumbents, elevating new figures at the same time, it feels like an electorate is restless, but are they also demanding just altogether different kind of leadership? Because, when you step back and look at these individual races, there's a bigger pattern here, and it doesn't feel like it's just about Texas. I'm looking at it like it's a snapshot, and it's pressure from both parties feeling from their bases, and we're heading towards the midterms. I'm very curious to see how this affects everybody in November, and if there is going to be like this really big shakeup, and how these people like Gonzalez can really do the runoff. Was his opponent really that terrible of an alternative, or was this story just not enough or not known enough?
In there's a lot there, and in the age of Trump, let me put it that way, politicians by and large are less likely to admit fault, apologize, or even resign. And Tony Gonzalez is a perfect example of that. I don't know who the last member of Congress was to resign. um I don't know, I
Over
can't even
like a
think.
scandal?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
thinking like
that
Katie
doesn't
Hill or
surprise
something.
me. And I mean,
Katie
even on the
Hill. Yeah,
Democratic
and
side.
that's it. That's my district. Not, I mean, that's from my town.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
know her
so
brother-in-law. I went to school with him.
people don't resign. So it didn't surprise me. Even Jesse Jackson Jr., when he was being investigated by the feds while he was running for office, still won his district and then had to resign to go to federal prison. So we're just in a different
Crazy.
place now when it comes to quote unquote a flawed candidate. But to your question, are these ideological purity tests a problem? Yes, they could be for the party in power. We're only talking about a couple seats in the House, a couple of seats. And so and with the redistricting in California and Texas, it's kind of hard to see how all this is going to play out. But every seat matters. And if you are going to lose a stronger candidate because of an ideological purity test, in which I think that is the case in terms of Dan Crenshaw, I believe you leave yourself open to possibly losing that seat in the general election. Less so in Texas, but the other races around the country where the margins are going to be slim. And if you use history as a guide, the party in power usually loses seats at the midterm. The Republican Party can't afford to lose any seats in the House. And the Senate map more favors the Democrats this time around. So there's a lot of peril and danger for the Republican Party at this point in time. Now, historically, the Democrats were the one who suffered from the ideological purity test. And I can make a case that that was part of the reason why Kamala Harris lost, because of the argument around genocide in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, the Republicans have to be careful about the ideological purity test because they could end up losing the House and the Senate. And since Donald Trump is not officially on the ballot, there's always a question of whether the Republican electorate will be as energized and show out in the numbers necessary.
Don't you think that there's a difference between ideological purity tests when it comes to identifying in the early days of a situation with a Middle Eastern conflict that we aren't even involved in versus sexual abuse that is so blatant and horrific? I mean, I don't know how anybody could be comfortable casting their vote for this person or having them represent them. I don't like to judge people, especially when they vote. Like, I try not to hold it against them, but I'm judgmental of the people that voted for him having all this information. I can't, and I don't expect you to answer that. That's, this is between these people and their own need to sleep at night. But I don't know how they could possibly. So with that, I do want to, speaking of sexual abuse, allegedly, and oh, actually, you know what? I have one last thing to say about that because it's in regards to one of the people who lost their seat. Politics is a small world. Voters have long memories, and sometimes the people that you ignore eventually get the last word. And maybe sometimes when you cancel on people's shows 5 minutes before they go to air, they remember. So enjoy retirement, sir. Um,
Love Petty. Oh,
Oh.
and anybody who knows, and that's all I have to say about that. So, speaking of long memories, let's move to another story that I will never drop until people are in jail. Jeffrey Epstein investigation. I want to talk to you guys about this Clinton deposition and the just utter shit show. Um, we're getting this inside look now. Thank goodness, because when they said closed door, I was so upset and I just did not want to deal with that. But, thanks to Lauren Boebert and her nonsense, we got pictures and they finally decided to open it up. For people who were like jumping up and down, I'm talking about the House Oversight Committee about let us see the files and let us investigate. Boy, they are doing everything they can to blow this investigation. I don't know what she's thinking taking sneaky pictures and then texting them of all like, oh, look who I'm with, and like sending a picture to Benny Johnson. You're gonna blow this for Benny Johnson? Like, I don't get it. Please, if someone could explain this to me, because I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, and then he doesn't even have the sense to keep it to himself and be like, "Whoa, tell me everything she says later. Let's have a debrief." Like, he doesn't even have the sense to do that. He's got to stamp his stupid watermark all over it and then post it. Like, everybody knows you're in the deposition with her. Like, this isn't even relevant breaking news. Everybody in the world knows that this is happening. I got probably 13 push notes on my phone about it, from AP to like that whack news break app. Like, everybody on my phone was telling me about it. So anyway, that's my rant about that. But Lauren Boebert could not be dumber. So nobody has to comment on that. That's just my feeling. So House Oversight Chairman James Comer is now asking for more people to come testify after the Clintons did. Bill Gates, Ted Wyatt, the founder of Gateway, equity billionaire Leon Black. They had Les Wexner testify, and I just saw that one clip where his lawyer was telling him to like shut the F up or he was going to kill him or something. Did anybody else see that? Because that was terrifying. You didn't see it, Nikki? Mo,
No.
you saw it. I should
Oh,
have
I
pulled
saw it.
it, but it's truly scary. Like, Les Wexner is like 300 years old and he's like, everybody knew, whatever. He's like telling too much, and then his lawyer whispers in his ear on the mic and he's like, if you say one more word, I'm gonna effing kill you. It's like, oh my God. That was very scary. But and then also, why isn't this in my notes? I wrote my own notes, so I can't blame anybody else. But also the sitting Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who's in the Trump administration, who was heavily involved with Epstein, but swore up and down he and his wife bounced from his house 30 seconds after meeting him, said he was creepy and gross, but then also took all of his kids to the island with his wife and was deeply involved with him. He's volunteered to sit, so let's expect a resignation very soon. Anyway, let's play one of the Bill Clinton clips, please, Ashley. I don't care which one you want, but they're getting a lot of attention because these moments are finally circulating. And Hillary and Bill Clinton depositions were very, very different in tone, to put it lightly.
Recall the details of this photo, recall the photo being taken.
No, I don't think I ever knew the photo was taken.
Okay, and for those who can't see it, it's a photo of you in a hot tub. There's a person next to you here. Were there other people in that pool or hot tub with you as well?
I don't think there's anybody in the hot tub. I didn't forgotten that there was anybody in the hot tub, but it was big, but it was about.
Well,
He's asking in the pool
it appears
area.
this photo, there's a girl over here. Is there someone?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. We went out, I swam around, I sat in the hot tub for 5 minutes, or whatever it was, and I got up and went to bed.
And then I have to ask this, did you engage in any sexual activity
No.
with this person? Okay, thank you.
Ashley, oh, there we go. Thank you. So this is the photo that they're referencing. In the first picture, the lady's face is blocked out. And then there he is leaning back in the hot tub with another lady whose face is blocked out. And then the bigger, I don't know if that's a pool or a larger hot tub, but that appears to be, I'm going to assume, Ghislaine Maxwell swimming with him. I'm going to just warn everybody, I think she's nude, but she's under the water. And then another lady whose face is blacked out. For a guy who wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein and didn't know him that well, they were just friendly. They sure look cozy. And he looks pretty at ease and relaxed. And this is just a couple of the pictures. Ashley, while I talk about this, can you play the binder video? Because it's pretty quiet and I can talk about this over it. This has always been about more than just one man.
Zero public
No,
hearings.
not Hillary,
refused to
sorry.
allow the media to attend them, including today.
Can we stop her? The Bill Clinton and his lawyer with the binder video. Thank you. I don't have my numbers on this. Sorry. This is my fault, everybody. Me being unprofessional. Okay, so while they get that, this story's always been about more than one guy. This is a network of very powerful creeps who crossed path with him. Now, I know that being named in the files and the Epstein lists is not an indication of guilt or abuse. But, you see those pictures, he's a married man. There's no reason for him to be in a naked hot tub with two women. I mean, I'm a married woman. If I saw my husband in that, I'd be upset. Mo, you're a married man.
Yeah.
Would you? I mean,
Look,
like what world?
I
So,
think it's simpler. I think it's simpler than that. This actually goes back to Tony Gonzalez. There is an and I'm not even the best person to say it, but I can see it as a man. There's an anti-woman um, bent to all of this, where the women are disregarded or the violence against them disregarded. That supersedes the politics and the political parties here. Whereas I can say that it's good to see Bill Clinton testify under oath. I'm not going to act like we all know that he's a lawyer and he knows how to game the system, and he was found in contempt as far as perjury when he was going through the Monica Lewinsky, Paula Jones saga. So his honesty is not above reproach. He is someone who can rightfully question. But to think that we're having these Epstein investigations and we're not having this cavalcade of men answer under oath to what they did, who they were with, who also was around them, what they saw, why we don't see Donald Trump, why we don't see Elon Musk, why we had to beg, plead to get Howard Lutnick is not necessarily beyond me, but I think it highlights how it's unserious and is actually, for me, and I'm not saying this to pander, I'm just saying it's obvious, it's more violence against women.
Yeah, 100% agree. Can we show that video again one more time? Because I just kind of want to set this up. They were showing Bill Clinton a binder of the photos. And can we just look at his face? Because his attorney grabs it away from him because he's smiling and kind of like giggling and laughing at it. Because he's like, and it was the best summer I ever had, kind of like vibe. He's so, I mean, that's how I look when I'm laughing at old pictures with my friends. This is not a man who feels remorse for what he did. Now, we don't know what photos he's looking at, okay? But if it's any of these pictures from the island or the jet or anything, it's like this is not a guy who feels badly for what he participated in, or even just the scope of what this investigation is about. And like to Mo's point, the horrific abuse, and that is just like the least of it, the abuse, because there's allegations of murder, there's allegations of forced pregnancy, and then taking the children away for further trafficking or God knows what. So, you know, when you cover Washington, Nikki, and Congress starts releasing these deposition clips for high profile people like the Clintons, how seriously does it feel like this investigation is being taken inside Washington? Like, for me, seeing the Clintons come in and be like, we have nothing left to lose. Yep, let's do it. Air it all on CNN Live because that's what Hillary wanted. She's like, let's F it, let's do it live. And to me, it feels like this is the first step toward actually getting Donald Trump and Melania to testify because we know they're all over the files. I think his name is the most listed behind Epstein's. So, Lutnick is going to go fall on the sword. And I think that hopefully next up will be, like you said, Elon Musk and Donald Trump. If you get called, do you have to go? I don't know how that works legally. Um, is there a sense that there's more people to fall?
I have to preface this with I do not really cover our Epstein stuff.
Okay.
So I'm sort of peripherally following along. But I imagine that the Clintons' participation really elevated it because, I mean, it basically set the precedent that a former president can testify, right? But does that mean that a current president can testify?
Do you think that there's a reason why that he gave himself almost like immunity from the Supreme Court is so that he can testify but not have to be held accountable for any alleged or potential horrible things done, past, present, future.
I'm trying to think of like what the immunity case was originally, because I don't think it was Epstein related, was it?
I think it was the Stormy Daniels 34 felony counts
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But I don't know that it's case specific. I think it was like blanket for
yeah. I was
future
just trying to
ever and
remember like
ever.
what there were
The
so many legal
catalyst was
cases in
for it. I
2024.
mean,
Which one he took
I
to the
think there's like
Supreme Court?
34 felony things in New York. Mo, same thing to you. It's like, do you think that anybody will end up seeing a cell or anything, or is
No,
this just theater?
it's absolute theater.
Ugh.
Since we know that people can't ignore congressional subpoenas without consequence, we know that. We know that, to your point, that presidents, since the Supreme Court ruling, under official acts can justify anything. We know that Donald Trump has never been under oath in regard to Jeffrey Epstein, and there's no upside for him to testify under oath for Jeffrey Epstein as far as criminal consequences,
Civil.
civil consequences, all that is never going to happen. Whether I think it should happen is a different discussion, but being realistic, the Epstein is, to answer your question, this is theater. No one is going to be arrested. No one's going to be in prison. Now, there may be collateral damage where we've seen people have had to step down from boards and positions like Larry Summers, what have you.
Yeah.
But that's like, you're nibbling around the edges. You're not actually getting to the heart of the matter or the people most involved. And for me, it's very simple. If you hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, if you were friends with Jeffrey Epstein, you party with Jeffrey Epstein, you should be testified because you might have done something, seen something, or know something which is relevant to the investigation. And that should be true regardless of whether you happen to be a Democrat or Republican, or you're a former president, or someone who just happened to be very successful in the world of tech.
Well, and Ghislaine Maxwell, what was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, something saying that she would spill everything on everyone as long as but exonerate Trump, saying he never did anything anywhere at any time, and I don't even know this guy, if he gives her immunity or freedom or whatever. So it's like, dude,
Pardon.
I mean, how could we trust anything this lady has to say about anything? And she's the only one who really that's alive that knows anything about what everything that happened.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see, because we don't have any time left, but I have a million questions and stuff to say about all this. Uh, this feels like the Epstein story. It feels like this has to be one of those cases where we will never get the full picture, and every time new documents and testimony come out, there's more questions than answers, and it's just like the rabbit hole of rabbit holes, the wormholes. It's a black hole, an entire galaxy of stuff. Do these moments bring clarity, like the Clintons' deposition and testimony, or is it just more suspicion about the whole story? And this is, to Mo.
It gives me clarity. It gives me clarity that we will never know. It
Yeah.
gives me clarity that the powerful are going to protect the powerful. And it gives me clarity that violence against women will never rank high in this nation as far as level of importance. And this is not to get on the good side of women. I'm just saying, let's call it for what it is. Women have been harmed in this every step of the way. And powerful men have been fighting to make sure that none of the truth comes out. Even though a law was passed, quote unquote, as far as the disclosure of all these things regarding Epstein, we still have only gotten, by most accounts, some 50% of the documents.
Not even. Yeah.
And heavily redacted, and also while exposing the name of some of the victims. That should tell you right there who is most important to this investigation. Not the victims and survivors, but the potential perpetrators and protecting them.
Well, and not even that, but they released a bunch of documents and then started pulling them back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a faux rollout. Like they put them out and then immediately started taking them out. So and not just that, but it was there were AI photos mixed in with it to kind of trick people, and it's like you don't even know if what you're saying is legitimate or not. So there is just a lot of strange things involved with the rollout as well. I could go on about this for a long time, and I have a million questions for you, Mo, because I just love the way you think about this Epstein stuff. So I might have you back next week because there's
Sure.
more and it's never ending. And just a quick note before I do our literal palate cleanser, but it was announced that Megan is going to be returning next week, and that is uh, premature news. I want to say she will be returning very, very, very soon, but apologies to the morning meeting, but that is not accurate. Sorry, everybody. That's not bad reporting on Mark's fault. It is just an unclear timeline, let's just say. We are working it out. So apologies to anybody who may have gotten very excited, but Megan is not coming back next week. She is coming back very soon. So to anybody who may have started getting their outfits together, hold it. So yeah. I want to do this literal palate cleanser because this was my favorite thing on the internet yesterday was, and I don't know if you guys caught this, but Burger King continuing to epically troll McDonald's in the best ways ever. So Megan and I are huge McDonald's girlies. We're the biggest fans of McDonald's. And oh, thank you, Dan. I love you. He said I need my own show on two-way, but I do this with Megan because I just absolutely love her to the ends of the earth. But um, you know, Burger King is hilarious on social media, and the McDonald's CEO posted some video about a new burger that they're having, and he could not bring himself to eat it. He's like, have you ever seen the SpongeBob meme where it's like he's taking like the babyest bite? Oh my God. Can we play the video, Ashley, the McDonald's video from Instagram where he's just like,
Here
someone commented
with,
he
you've
has
heard about
kale
it.
salad
Here it
aura.
is, the big arch. This is something that we have tested already in Portugal, Germany, Canada. I love
Has
this
this guy
product.
ever
It is
eaten a
so
burger in
good.
his
I'm going to do a
life?
tasting
Look at
right
him.
now, but I'm going to eat this for my lunch, just so you know. So here we go. First, holy cow. God, that is a big burger. We've got a very unique kind of sesame poppy
Unique
sort of
sesame
bun
seed.
on it.
Has he ever eaten
We've
at
got
McDonald's?
2 quarter-pound patties, a delicious Big Arch sauce, and of course some lettuce. So, oh, there's so much going on with this. First of all, let's try to get this thing.
That side
I
eye.
don't even
He's
know how
trying
to
not to
attack
barf.
it. Got so much to it. Oh, there's also some crispy onions on here as well. I see those kind of coming out. All
my
right, the
God.
moment of truth. That is so
Did
good.
he even eat it?
That's a big bite for a big arch. It's distinctively McDonald's. Only
I think my
McDonald's can do
5-year-old
this type
takes
of
bigger
burger,
bites than
but it
that.
also is unlike anything else on our menu. It's a delicious product. You know, you've got sort of the
Are those
cheeses and the
fries even
gooiness,
cooked? They're
but
still
those
white.
crispy onions as well gives a nice texture. And of course, we've got the pickles. So
All right, we can
I'm going to
stop
enjoy
it.
the rest of my lunch.
Is there anything worse than McDonald's pickles, by the way? I always get everything without the pickles. They're so
Same.
disgusting.
Same.
Miranda, are we
Mo?
supposed to believe that the president of McDonald's has not tasted one of its chief promotional items that they're getting ready to roll out prior to that moment? Is that what we're supposed to believe?
That he's never tasted it.
Right.
But watching that video, I 100% believe he's never tasted it. And I also believe he's never eaten McDonald's unless he's been like held it. Like it looks to me like someone's standing in the corner like this, like holding
It's
him at
Whole Foods,
gunpoint.
not McDonald's.
Yes, he is maybe on like a really busy bad day El Pollo Loco.
Yeah.
Like that guy is flame broiled chicken and rice. Like that is not a McDonald's guy. He looks maybe 110 pounds soaking wet. I can't. That is not a McDonald's eater. Like um that burger looks delicious. I want to eat it, but he doesn't make me want to eat it. He makes it look
No.
horrific. Whitney, your kid is so cute. Oh my God. That is a cute baby. Uh, hi. I bet he loves a Happy Meal. But can we just after that went viral because someone said kale salad energy. What else did they say? Uh, that is the like weird ass nibble. He's scared to eat his own burger. Like, and you know that they're not gonna give him something that's gonna like make him sick. He's the boss. But those fries looked raw, right? Though I want a crispy golden. Every time I go, I get well done fries, extra crispy. Um, I'm gonna eat the rest of this for my lunch. It's like, no, you're not. Just don't even lie to us. Just say you can get it everywhere now, whatever it is. I'm very interested to see the numbers and how much they tank after that. Does anybody even buy this sandwich? Can we play actually the Burger King TikTok where they responded to this because Tom Curtis, their president, posted his own TikTok in response to it, where he just, he ate a regular Whopper, saying, "Thought we would share this with you." That's a man who loves his product.
Right? Only one thing missing, a napkin.
He's tan, he's handsome, he's in the kitchen, he just takes a big old bite out of it, and you can tell he likes it. And you know what? I don't even know where a Burger King is because they don't even really have that many of them around. But I'm tempted to go find one and go get a Whopper because that makes me want one. I want to go eat one. I know where 5 McDonald's are off the top of my head. They're everywhere, but that makes me want to go get a Whopper. I can't even think the last time I had them. So it's like, after a day of geopolitics and the investigations and, the other things that I prepped us for, I wanted to talk to you guys about the Warner Brothers Paramount merger, because I think that's going to get pretty messy. But, we're back where we belong, and that's just making fun of people on the internet and talking about burgers because that's my love language. So, thank you guys, and for settle this for me because McDonald's or Burger King, like,
McDonald's.
what's the vibe? McDonald's, but after that, like, don't ever put the CEO in a commercial again. Get an actor, because that was a disaster.
But you know what happens? I know we're over just very quickly. You see a lot of these companies with these CEOs who want to be celebrities. They force themselves into the marketing, into the
seems so
commercials
uncomfortable
because it's vanity. It's about self-aggrandizement. No, I wonder who was in the marketing meeting who said, "Hey, let's get the president of the company and have him try out the new McArch."
Mo. He was like a
Personality.
ventriloquist dummy. He did not look like a human, and he did not look comfortable.
No.
And, actually, I'm sorry, everybody watching, because it's probably not where you are, but In-N-Out, actually, like, that's where I really want to go. So I have a doctor's appointment today. I'm going to treat myself and go sit in the line for 45 minutes and get an In-N-Out.
Amen.
Actually, extra spread, animal fries, no onions. Thank you. Nikki, what's the vibe?
I'm a Wendy's girl. I love my
Wendy's.
Frosties, and I love to dip my French fries in my Frosty.
They have excellent fries. The last time I had one of their burgers, it gave me food poisoning, but I do
Oh
love
no.
it. I know, it's all right. But I do love that they have a baked potato.
That's also
I do
clutch.
love a
Yes.
place with a baked potato. So there's that. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if I have to promote anything. Megan will not be back next week. Follow Mo on Facebook, add him as a friend, Mo Kelly, Nikki on social media at Nikki Schwab, and us on everything at Citizen McCain, Instagram and TikTok, and our YouTube at Citizen McCain, YouTube. So see you guys next week.